Welcome to the Earth Healers, where the quiet ground still speaks, where stone and root remember what the listening heart seeks. We walk the lines of old, knowing where land and spirit meet, learning how to listen again to the wisdom beneath our feet.
Hello and welcome to the Earth Healers. Today I am joined by Lissa Kennedy and Roxanne Côté, and they are forest bathing guides that have recently come out with a wonderful, wonderful new deck of forest bathing techniques and invitations to connect with the earth. And we're going to be diving into so many wonderful things that they have to bring to the table about connecting with the earth and about getting out there and healing with nature. I'm really excited to dive into what we're talking about here. I received the deck about a month ago, and I just absolutely love these cards. I've been using them in my own shamanic coaching practice and just finding techniques for students to connect with nature. These are just so, they really fit in with the shamanic practice as well. These little techniques and invitations for connecting with the earth. I absolutely love it. And forest bathing is just such an important technique, I think, because you don't even have to be interested in shamanism, let's say, to do it. Like it's very open to everyone, and I really love that about it. Yeah, so as we dive in, just for the listener, how would you define forest bathing? What is it?
Forest bathing is basically being out in nature, absorbing the atmosphere of your environment, of the land. And it's actually based upon a Japanese practice called Shinjin-yoku, and that roughly translates in English to forest bathing, which is where the term comes from. But it's really just connecting to your senses out on the land, listening to yourself, going inward, as well as connecting to senses, what you're touching, the leaves that you're walking by, the scents of the forest or the ocean, the beach. You can do nature bathing. You don't always have to be in a forest, but that's the general gist and the idea of forest bathing.
It's such a powerful technique, and it's something that we've lost over the years, that people definitely in modern culture, they spend less and less time in the wild and just getting back out there and rediscovering nature. I recently saw a news report that there is some region in Canada, I think, where they actually started allowing doctors to write prescriptions that are actually passes to a provincial or municipal park in the area. So it's just, getting people back out to nature. It's just so incredibly important.
I just felt called to chime in. And actually, every healthcare professional throughout Canada can prescribe time in nature since 2022. And some parks have partnerships with what's the name in English of it? Anyways, they have a partnership with this organization, which allows for people who don't have the money to go to their parks to go for free for a certain period of time. And there are almost 20,000 or just about 20,000 people prescribing nature as it is in Canada.
That's positive change. Absolutely. How did both of you then come into this such a powerful set of techniques and just this way of connecting with nature? Yeah, how did that develop for both of you?
It was very synchronistic, my path coming into this. A family member sent me an article about forest bathing back in 2016. And she's like, "Oh, I think you would like this." And I read it and I had an immediate just like heart expanding moment and it was just this full body knowing of like, oh, I have to I have to do this. This feels so resonant to me, right? And I got to the bottom of the article and it said, you can be trained as a guide. And I was like, what? This is amazing. It felt so like right for me. And so in that instant, I just decided I'm doing this. And at the time it was, I had two little kids. It wasn't an easy decision and to travel to Canada to be trained and all of those pieces, but everything just lined up. And from that moment, I started my own personal practice. And then in getting trained as a guide, my practice just deepened and expanded. And it was it for me, and I am so grateful to past Lissa for making that, decision and following her heart, because it's opened up so much beauty and so much friendship with Roxanne. Of course, I wouldn't know Roxanne, as well as just friendship with the land and reciprocity with the beings in my vicinity here, my mountains. And so that's the beginning of my winding path.
That's fantastic. And Roxanne, how about you?
So nice to recall on these moments where we met and all that. This felt like an awe moment, right? I came upon this thing on Facebook that said science was actually finally able to prove that nature was good for your health. And I thought, really? Really, really? Because I knew it all along. My body kind of knew, right? Everybody, it's just common sense. But I wanted this to feel super legal because I wanted to bring this practice into my social working and psychotherapy work. And so from one article to another, I ended up finding about this forest therapy, forest bathing guiding practice. And without knowing, signed up for the same cohort that Lissa signed up. And this is how we met.
Fantastic. And it came together in this wonderful collaboration, which is this new deck. I was looking through a little while back a number of these techniques and invitations in the card deck. And so I'm curious, what do you feel are some of the core principles of forest bathing? Like what links all of these invitations, these techniques together? What are some of the guiding principles of the practice?
So when we were trained as guides, we learned a whole set of like a scaffolding of techniques to guide folks, groups onto the land and to get them mentally, physically, even spiritually into the frame of mind, the alpha brain wave lengths in order to be able to receive the healing benefits. And it goes so much more beyond that, but I guess some of the principles that connect all of these invitations is like being able to drop into the body, I would say is one, and being able to really tap into your senses, and not just your five senses. We have so many more than five, it turns out. And so I think that is like one primary principle, I would say. And I'll let Roxanne add anything.
Well, I like that you start there because this is always where I start, Lissa. And from that sensory place in our bodies, because we offer opportunities for people to relate with nature, that relationship brings people from something that is initially sensory into something that is sensual. And with that, the bond, the capacity to relate, to feel connected, to reciprocate with nature emanates. And this is where our nature connection deepens. And this is how we find ourselves back in those ecosystems where we can feel like we are a part of it again.
That's fantastic. It's a wonderful thing just to connect with that. I look at it almost like an earlier way of being, just being there in nature. It feels like reclaiming something. And so I'm curious, what are some of the most magical experiences that you have had in forest bathing, whether personally or in guiding others? Like, what are some of the experiences where just things lined up in a way where it was like, wow, that was amazing, or that was an amazing experience that is life-changing? What are some examples of that you might have encountered?
As my practice has deepened, I've had so many, like countless almost every time I go out to nature, there's just something, even if it's little, but the one that comes to the top of my mind in this moment is a couple years back when I was in a very big transition in life. I went on a backpacking trip with a few of my friends, and we were out in the middle of the desert and trying to hike and find water. And it was dry, as you would imagine, with the desert. And on the way into this like slot canyon to finding our spot, we were going to get water and camp. I look down and there's a bright yellow beetle that is not alive anymore in the sand. And it just shone like the sun. Like I just saw it and picked it up and was just amazed at how beautiful it was. I love insects. And so some people might be like, oh, interesting, you pick up a dead bug. But it was really exciting for me. And I picked it up and it felt like had this immediate knowing of, oh, this is a little message, a sign from the universe. And I kept it. And it was what is it called? One of those beetles that it's like a scarab, I think is what you call it. And so it had the hard shell, but it was a yellow one that I had never seen before. And I kept it and its wings were closed. We had a whole experience backpacking and my friends and I were chatting about how beautiful it was and how special it was. And scarab beetle has to do with death and rebirth energy. And in this moment of my life where I was leaving a big relationship and moving on to something new, it felt very supportive. And then on the hike out, a couple days later, we're hiking again, and I look down and there's another scarab beetle, yellow, bright yellow, the same species. I pick it up, but this time its wings are out. And it was frozen in place, and it was just so beautiful. It felt like I came out of that trip a different person. I had tapped so deeply into myself, and nature was mirroring me, right? With this like wings closed and then wings open. And I still have them. I put them in a little frame and I have them in my room. And like that is such a tender, beautiful moment. And just one of the many little moments I've had out on nature.
I love that. Absolutely. And, having a beetle related synchronicity like that, that is amazing because when Carl Jung, I believe, first came up with the term and the idea of synchronicity, right? I believe it was also a beetle synchronicity. It was this scarab beetle flying into the room. He catches it in his hand and he shows it to his client and he's like, is this the scarab from your dream? And she had a huge breakthrough because it basically was the closest approximation in that continent of that beetle. So, I mean, it's incredible it's like a synchronicity of a synchronicity to have a beetle related one too. So I love that, that's
Yeah.
powerful.
Thanks for connecting that. I heard that story from Jung, and that's really, yeah, very potent. That's the next layer for me to look into.
No, it's meta. It's almost meta. I
Yeah.
love it. It's
Inception.
fantastic. That's powerful. Absolutely. So, Roxanne, what about you? Have you had any especially transformative or magical or just powerful things that you've seen either in your own practice or in any kind of groups that you've led?
Absolutely. And groups create, there is a power to having a group together, sharing a nature connection, because it just takes us out of our daily approach to nature, where we are most likely to be standing from a colonized point. And all of a sudden, everybody's allowing themselves to share about nature. And although I would have tons of examples to share about how things got magical, I feel like sharing one that's very scientific because that actually blew my mind. It was back in 2017, and not too long after we had our first training. So the place that forced bathing and the science that was around it wasn't as evolved as it is today. And I was working in a cégep, which is that between high school and university school that is in Quebec. And I was honored with guiding a group of people learning to be nurse technicians. And they had only 1 hour with me. And usually a forced bathing experience is 2 to 3 hours. And most science that was around it up until then was at least 3 hours or up to 3 days. And I thought, well, okay, this is a challenge. And the teacher was all into it, thinking, oh, we're going to take our pulse before and after, and we'll see what happened. And I'm like, yay, exciting. And a part of me is like, I hope nature is going to be there for me. It's just an hour and I haven't read anything on it. And about 20 minutes prior to the end, it starts pouring rain, like cold October rain pouring on us, and everybody runs. We had the privilege to have a little roof in a park to hide under. So we were all, getting back under the roof, and the students are like super hyped, but not happy. They're like, I have to go back inside. I want to dry my clothing under the hand dryer in the bathroom because I have an exam coming up next period and I'm going to be frozen if I don't do that. And everybody just wants to run away. And the teacher's like, let's take your signals again, like let's go with the heart, with your pulse and your blood pressure and all that. And I'm like, this is it. This is where I will lose all my notoriety around this practice. And fair enough, it did it. Despite their stress, despite their rush to leave, their heart rate was stable, and they had a better heart variability, and their blood pressure had lowered. And I was just really impressed with, and they all left and I was like, well, it did it anyways. And, a few years later, some studies found out that it only takes 20 minutes for the cortisol levels to lower significantly in our bodies to be able to feel something. But I thought, that was pretty good. They were all stressed out and it worked out. So I thought that was that was a scientific magic.
I love that. That's such a trial by fire type of experience, right? Where it's like, okay, we're gonna put you in a stressful situation, but at the same time, you're gonna have nature counteracting it, right? That's essentially what you found, right? That the exposure to nature, it makes you think that even when you're stressed out in nature, I guess you're still doing good. That's
The
amazing.
body, the body feels like even if the mind is still active, the body probably still gets the positive aspect of it. So it's pretty interesting. I'm interested in getting to know more on that. I'm pretty sure new studies will speak more about that phenomenon.
That's fantastic. That's fascinating. Wow. Makes me think if you're going to have an argument with someone, you should go out and do it in nature because at least your body will be calm. So that, yeah, many
I actually
applications.
prescribe that. I
Pardon
actually
me?
prescribe that. Yeah, if I have some people, they're like, "Oh, I have to talk about this with my significant other or whatever." I'll be like, how about go out for a walk, wait 20 minutes, and then start this conversation. It's probably going to be easier than if you are facing each other inside and, at night when everybody's tired and yeah.
Yeah, and you've been exposed to a ton of blue light and all that kind of thing, right? So yeah, absolutely. I love that. Oh, that's maybe I'll use that one day. We'll see. So yeah, so my next question is, what is it like to guide others in forest bathing? What is it like to awaken others to that way of seeing the world? Are there any particular challenges that you encounter in getting them to open up to this new way of perceiving and connecting? Or, is it pretty easy?
People signing up for my forest bathing walks generally have an interest, right? So I have had some skeptical people come in, and it's honestly just an honor every time because the transformation people go through on these, like Roxanne mentioned, they're usually a 3-hour session, is always amazing, even if it's subtle. And I did, it makes me think of a man that came on one of my walks years ago. And he was like a big burly man, very kind, very friendly, but very quiet. He didn't share a lot during the sessions. And by the end of the 3 hour, at the end, we have tea ceremony and we sit together and share kind of our final experience, whatever anyone wants to open up and share. And he just started crying, and he had such a well of emotion, just realizing that he could feel, how he described it was, I can feel how I did as a kid, and I didn't know I had access to that still. So for me, guiding, just moments like that feel so exciting and like such an honor to be a part of and to witness, because I feel like being a witness to those moments is also very important for those who are experiencing them, right? And that's also why we do these council circles, or sitting, and sharing in a circle, so each person can be a witness as well. There's so many elements to a forest bathing walk that people don't, like, going into it would have no idea what the guide is, doing in their mind and in their energy of just like holding the space. And it's really a beautiful thing. So that's just my experience, guiding. It's really beautiful.
Absolutely. Getting someone back to that childhood state of just wonder and just interacting with the natural world. I love that. Absolutely. And what about you, Roxanne? Have you had any interesting experiences or any insights as to what it's like to guide others into that forest bathing mindset or into the practice?
Oh yeah, and I totally resonate with what you said just there, Liz, with the feeling of being privileged to witness this reawakening. I'm going to say that because most people have had a moment, at least in their life, where they felt like they could relate like that with nature. Hosting a forest therapy, forest bathing session is a lot about allowing and getting permission to follow my own ideas, which is why we talk about these cards like invitations, right? And we're using a very invitational language. And we keep on reminding people that we trust that if the invitation doesn't resonate with them, but it sends them to something else, this is what they should be doing. So there's a lot of empowerment that is being done, and people are not used. It's very countercultural to be like that, because there's no such thing as doing it right or wrong. It's however you feel like you should be doing it is the right way, as long as we are respectful of every aspect of biodiversity that is around us, whether it be the more than human world or humans and much more. But that invitational language and the whole scaffolding of the walk, of the forest therapy experience, forest bathing experience, really supports a process where people find themselves in an authentic place. So they are reawakening to themselves, they are reawakening to the world around them, and they are reawakening to the possibility of sharing that vulnerability or sharing that beauty with other humans in a safe environment. So we are really tapping on many levels of healing, and that is beautiful in itself. So often we will share laughter, sometimes we will share tears, and we're not trying to fix anything. We're just witnessing, welcoming all of that to be as a part of this world. And that's truly special to me. Anyway.
I love that, how there's no right way to do it. And that, yeah, in our modern culture, that's a tough thing to accept sometimes, right? Or to make that shift. And, it sounds like it's similar to something that I find even in my shamanic work, which is that sometimes you have to give yourself license to be weird, like just to not fit in or to do something that, yeah, maybe others would think you're crazy if they saw you doing it, but it's like, well, they're not here right now. And so there's only my own personal personal programming of feeling silly while doing this that I have to go up against. And so just have to release that and be like, you know what? Fine. Maybe for the next hour, I'm going to be weird. And, my ego can just accept that fact because that's how it's going to be, right? So we spoke of the deck. And so I'd love to dive into that now. So what led both of you to come together and have the idea for an invitation to forest bathing, to come together to make this deck?
I was first inspired actually by the man who started and is the founder of the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. His name is Amos Clifford, and he's a really kind man. He reached out after I was trained because when we're trained as guides, we send in a whole packet of, our work. And he reached out after seeing some of my work and my invitations and my writing and journal and said, "Would you like to create a deck?" And I was so excited and very, synchronistically, Roxanne had happened to just mention in passing when we were being trained together that she did watercolors. And so when I was thinking of who to bring on for the art, she popped in immediately. She was just perfect because she knows the practice. The art can come from a place of deep knowing about forest therapy and forest bathing. And so I reached out to her, and that's kind of how it all got started and the inspiration came.
Yeah, the art is also stunning. I love the techniques, the invitations, but I love this watercolor crow here. That's just fantastic. It really stands out to me. So, so Roxanne, how did it emerge for you?
During our training, like we had a 8-day intensive, 8 or 9 day intensive, and then 6 month practicum followed. And because the forest bathing practice wasn't known in my area, I felt called to paint. At the beginning, I was just painting the beings that I was encountering that helped me with and shared their medicine. And then at some point, I thought, well, this is what I'll do. I will ask the little cafe in town if they want to exhibit my paintings, and I'll have a vernissage. And when that happens, I can speak about forest therapy and people can learn about it, and perhaps they'll be inspired to come on a walk eventually. And so I shared these images, and just at the same time, Lissa was like, "We need to do this together." And I thought, well, this is a great fit. I already have 12 done. So let's keep on going. And I really want to acknowledge here the forest, because going out and catching invitations was a delight. Like I didn't write the invitations. Lissa did all the writing and finding the right words for it, and she did a great job at it. And I know both of us went on the land and let nature invite us into things. We let the birds catch our attention, and the smells inspire us. And then we realized at some point that we were following our scent and our sense of smell, and that this was fun until we find it, and then catching up another smell and then that became an invitation in itself. And so I think the forest did a lot here too.
With the term invitation, just to clarify for the listeners who might not have heard that in relation to forest bathing before. So by invitation, it sounds like it's activities to be done with the earth, but it's more than that, right? It's an invitation to connect in that way, right?
Yes, we call them invitations because they're just that. They're invitational. And so it's a prompt. And like Roxanne expressed a little while ago, that, use your creativity. If the prompt starts you somewhere, but you feel like you want to go a different direction, that's meant to be. And it's just to get you kind of started as an invitation and in the connection. And some of them will be very, very brief and very subtle, but kind of land you in a very deep space unexpectedly. And some of them are more like meditations that guide you into these deeper parts of your psyche. So there's all different types of invitations, but that's kind of where the idea comes from, I would say.
Very powerful approach. Absolutely. And so how do you foresee people using this card deck? How can they use it, whether privately or in a group setting, to really get the most out of it?
I can share about how I use them. So, I've been using them when I guide a group. There is a moment where often I like to put them all on the ground and let people pick one out. And they really feel like this is probably meant to be, which enhances the pleasure and the surprise that comes with that invitation. I've also been using them also as an invitation to do between meetings. So, because I do counseling practice, well, sometimes at the end of a meeting, I will be handing out the whole deck or a card to the person that I'm supporting and inviting them to go out and find themselves in nature and try out these cards, which in itself is a way to prescribe nature, but it's not consuming nature, it's relating to nature. And I really like doing that actually. Altogether, it really helps people gaining more autonomy on their journey, on their healing journey as a in psychotherapy, for instance, because they find themselves in nature, they find how to work, they figure out how to work in partnership with nature, which supports them in finding some of their answers, and it's been supporting that way. What about you, Liz?
Oh, I use the deck in many different ways. I love to bring it to my forest school classes with children, and I'll do something similar where I lay out the cards and they pick the image. Roxanne and I talked early on in creating the deck and how we hope one day that people could also use it as just more like an oracle deck, similar to where just the archetypes of the images can speak to you. And so you could use it with just the images. You could, shuffle it like a tarot deck, and whatever one pops out feels very, meant to be for you, and see what the activity is and the prompt is on the other side. It's really fun to go out with like a group of friends, or I've done this with some of my friends and family, and go out even in your backyard, or, if you have a trail nearby and everybody picks a card, and then you each do your individual invitation and come back and share your experience. It's a very connecting practice, like not only with the land, of course, but with who you're with and internally on your own. So there's like a myriad of ways to use the deck. And we hope, or I hope, that people will get creative. And, I hear stories now of people coming back to me and finding an invitation in the deck and using it in a way that I never had thought of. And it's just really exciting to hear people's experiences with each prompt. And there's just so much you can do with it.
It invites itself to so many use cases. It's very open-ended in that way. I love it. And so one last question before we start to sign off. What are some of your favorite invitations from the deck? Like, what has really stayed with you since you compiled the deck, or just invitations that have really meant something to you as you've progressed? What are some of your favorites?
I love so many of these invitations. I have the deck out here in front of me, and it's hard to pick one, but there are two that I want to highlight that I come back to again and again in my own practice or when I guide people. And one is inner child. First of all, this hummingbird is gorgeous that Roxanne created, and that really speaks to me. And then the invitation on the back is about tapping into yourself as a child at any age that pops in, and meditating on what did you look like, what color was your hair, how short was it, what were you wearing, really diving into that inner child version of you. And then when you open your eyes, you explore this place as the inner child, as that, when you were that age. That's a really, really, really impactful one. And whenever I guide groups and bring that into the practice, people have very profound experiences. And then my other favorite is the twin tree invitation. I don't have the image, but it is basically going out wandering and finding a tree that resonates with you as if it's your twin, and sitting with this tree and seeing, does this tree have a message for you? If it's your twin, what is it mirroring to you in this moment? And that also seems to be a very impactful one for myself and others. Oh, there's the image Roxanne has, the little raccoon.
This is the twin tree invitation and the image that comes from it. We were lucky, like this image is one of my friends who took it camping. This little raccoon was looking at their cooler. It was a quite an experience to find all these images to be inspired from. Those are my two favorite invitations, if I can continue with this question here. This one is a very, very miniature version of a vision quest, I think. I will use this very mini because we're doing this in a nutshell. In a forest bathing experience, this would probably last 20 minutes. On my own journeys, I'll maybe extend it, but the idea is to hold a question within ourselves and to simply be open to whatever might happen in our surroundings that will inspire us to answer that question or to see things differently. So it's very wide, very non-prescriptive, and it allows people to become creative about their situation and walk out of those mazes that they're usually stuck into. So I use that one a lot for myself and for the people that I work with. And this one is another one that I really appreciate, which is about the idea of meditating on our own relationship, like my own relationship with Mother Earth, to come to a point where we're kind of wondering, what if she felt as I feel for her, the same way for myself, and how much I love her and how much she might be able to love me. And that usually is very touching. And I like this particular invitation when I work with people who have eco-anxiety. These people feel like they should be parenting the earth, and I'm not saying that we should not be adopting ecological gestures to tend to the natural world. I'm just saying that it's important to be able to recognize the strength that she has to take care of herself as well, and to come back to our own power and how we can tend to this where we are, rather than we're holding all of this on our shoulders. So this is one that I often use.
I love that. And that's a powerful insight as well. If you're constantly worried about having to take care of the earth, you're going to go into nature and you're going to be stressed out about the things you should be doing to take care of it, right? So instead, I see it as a cycle, right? Where it's like, okay, yes, we do take care of her, but at the same time, she's pretty hardy. She's been around for a long, long time, right? So now she can take care of herself and take care of us, right? So I love that. I love that. Well, this has been an absolutely phenomenal talk with the two of you. Really made me excited to get out there and spend some more time outdoors now that it's spring. So this has been absolutely great. Where can people find your deck, and where can people also find you online, what you do, your courses, your schools, and all that?
Yeah, thank you. This chat has been so wonderful, and I'm really excited to get our deck out there. It was just released on April 6th. You can find it across, any platform that sells books and decks, and also Red Wheel Wiser has it on their website. It's called An Invitation to Forest Bathing. And then my personal website and Instagram is Wasatch Forest Therapy. The mountains I live by are called the Wasatch Mountains. So that's where that name comes from. And I'd be so happy if any of your listeners reached out and, sent an email, sent a message, said hi, or if anyone purchases a deck, we would both probably love to hear how their experience is. So thanks for having us and giving us the opportunity to chat about it.
feel so thankful for how you've welcomed us on your podcast. It's very pleasant to be with you. And yeah, I'm so I'm so aligned with what you just said here, Lisa. If anyone wants to reach out, it'd be fun to hear about you. You can reach out to me at humaneterre.com. So that's human and earth in French.com, but you have to write it in French, which is a bit complicated. So I'll just say it back one more time, but try to Google translate it. Humain et terre. So that's human and earth.com. So if you want to reach out there, it'll be a pleasure to hear about you. And thanks again for this amazing interview.
I will have all your links and everything down in the show notes below so people will know where to find you. Once again, thank you so much for both of you coming on. This has been a real pleasure, and I think the audience is going to be really inspired to get outside this year. So thanks so much.